Meeting, but before we do, I'd like to pledge allegiance to the flag. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'm your District 1 Executive Counselor, Joe Kenny. Again, welcome. Today we're going to be having the Gasset, if you will, hearing on the 10-year highway improvement plan. The Gasset is the governor's kind of intermodal transportation commission, and it's made up of myself, Councilor Warmington, Councilor Gatzis, Councilor Wheeler, and Councilor Stevens. So there's 5 of us. And the process starts with DOT, goes to the regional planning commissions, comes to us. We conduct public hearings throughout the summer and the fall. And from there, it goes on to the governor for a signature. And then your legislature gets it soon after. And the House and the Senate, they get to tear it apart. But they don't tear it apart too bad. So there's 21 public hearings that are being conducted statewide to gather public comments and feedback on the projects of the 10-year highway improvement plan. There will be one virtual hearing on November 3rd. Public notices for this hearing has been posted. The department will post a link to the meetings on their website. So any input that you have beyond this meeting will be collected by the Department of Transportation up until November 8th. These hearings are a part of the process defined in state laws as part of RSA 228:99, RSA 240. Remind everybody this is a public hearing and everything is being recorded, and all testimony provided at the meeting or any written comments submitted are a part of the public record. I always mention this, not too many of the other councils do, but we got this responsibility, Governor and Council, in 1986 when John H. Sununu said that Executive Council is not doing enough, so we're going to give them this 10-year highway improvement plan process. So we've had it for 24 plus 21 years. How much is that, Commissioner? 14 and 21? 35 years. So we take it seriously, and we work very closely with the Department of Transportation. Sorry to put you on the spot, Commissioner. But with that, we're going to go ahead with an introduction of our guest here on the front panel, and then our guests in the back who will speak up and introduce themselves if they're a part of DOT.
Victoria Sheehan, Commissioner for DOT.
I'm Glenn Davison. I'm the project manager for the 10-year plan process for DOT.
I'm Peter Stamnus, Director of Project Development for DOT.
Lucy St. John, New Hampshire, DOT. Kim Rumo, DOT.
Is our regional planner here?
Susan Slag, Principal Planner at Lakes Region Planning Commission.
Thanks, Susan. So with that, Peter, would you like to kick it off?
I would.
Okay.
I would, sir. Welcome. This is hearing number 17 of our Gasset hearings. Our presentation today will be right around 30 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions beyond that. There's a lot of content on our website, and this is a pretty high-level presentation, and we've given you links on your agenda to get to our website, but there's lots of information posted there, all the presentations that we've made over the last few months, plus supplemental information that may help you answer some of the questions you may have on the content. With that, we'll get started. So we're operating currently under the 2021 through 2030 10-year plan. It was approved in the summer of 20, and soon thereafter we began the update. And the plan itself covers a 2-year process. It's done every 2 years, and it begins with the Regional Planning Commission phase and moves to the Gasset phase, which is where we are right now. Again, 22 some odd public hearings. We're looking to gather commentary Following the hearings, we'll meet with Gasset on a couple of occasions in November, where we'll summarize all of the commentary that we've received, and we'll likely make some changes to the plan that's as it stands right now. And from there, it goes to the governor in the legislative phase. So the governor will get it in December. He will review and update and pass it along to the legislature. Again, more opportunities for public comment. There'll be some hearings. It'll go back to the governor to be signed into law, and that'll be our work plan for the next couple of years. The process starts again. So it's a 2-year cycle and for the update, and here we are again. Outline, a couple of areas for funding. We have a high-level funding summary. We'll review some strategies that were developed in order to create this draft of the 10-year plan. Review some of the major funding adjustments that have come about. A couple of slides on state of the infrastructure and some of the projected outcomes based on the investment level in the plan. I will turn it over to Susan Slack from Lakes Region Planning Commission, and she'll go through the Regional Planning Commission priority projects. Come back to me to give you some information on the 10-year plan book itself, and then we'll open it up for comments. And again, each one of these bullet areas, there are detailed slides on our website that will provide a little deeper look into the information that I'm going to present at a fairly high level. And you can Google NHDOT and get to our project center and the 10-year plan link, and you'll have all the information there at your fingertips. So the high-level funding summary. So the state funding overall is reduced. COVID has impacted driving patterns. People are driving less, so they're buying less gas and paying fewer tolls. This impacts funding for betterment, SB 367, and turnpike programs. Betterment funding comes from 3 cents of the state gas tax. Betterment program makes improvements to roads that are not eligible for federal funding, and reductions mainly impact the resurfacing program. SB 367 funding comes from 4 cents on the state gas tax. The SB 367 program funds improvements on rural roads and bridges on the state system and municipal bridges through the state aid bridge program. Projections show there'll be less funding available in those areas. Turnpike funding comes from toll receipts. Reductions in revenue will cause delays to the turnpike capital projects, and those delays range from 2 to 4 years. Overall, on the federal side, we anticipate federal funding to increase. There's been lots of talk in Washington about reauthorization, and this act, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the IIJA, for New Hampshire, $1.14 billion of apportionment, around $228 million per year, which is a 24% increase on the level of federal funding on the highway side that we have currently in our 10-year plan, which is $183 million from a constraint standpoint. And this apportionment is similar to the Senate Environment and Public Works plan, the bipartisan plan that's coming out of the Senate. There's a second piece to this act. It includes $242 million of advanced general fund appropriations for New Hampshire, which breaks down into $45 million per year in additional funding for bridges and around $3.4 million per year for electric vehicle infrastructure program. This second piece, the funds for this second piece are not included in this 10-year plan. The more conservative approach was to use the apportionment, the $1.14 billion, and as we learn more about the act coming out of the House, we'll incorporate those funds and modify the plan accordingly. Some of the other federal aid plans that have come about, the CARES, CRISA, and ARP, $133 million in COVID relief funds across all modes of transportation. Some of the major strategies that we identified and implemented in order to develop this 10-year draft of the plan: focus on maintenance and preservation of the existing network of roads and bridges, Continue to invest in core system programs and build on our successes in road and bridge conditions statewide. So we're making incremental improvements to the network to improve the overall level of service across the state. Continue to dedicate $50 million to Regional Planning Commission priority projects, and that's $25 million in the 2 outer years of the plan. These 3 strategies are very similar to those that we had in previous updates, the last 2 updates of the plan. So we are assuming additional funds on the with federal reauthorization, and these areas, these are the strategies that we had to utilize those additional funds. First, we want to accelerate existing 10-year plan projects where possible. We want to fully fund scope-constrained existing projects. Convert Garvey bonded projects to federal aid funds. Modify existing programs to improve projected conditions outer years by including inflationary adjustments. And then we'd consider new projects in the outer years to improve safety and capacity. We continue to invest in other essential modes of transportation, including transit, rail, airports, and active transportation. General funding synopsis. This is our rainbow chart, and the numbers don't matter. What I'd like to do is just explain what the chart means. This table is in the 10-year plan book, and it represents the investments that we have in the book by funding categories. So the funding categories are the multicolors across the top, and each cell in this table identifies the investments for a particular fiscal year for a particular funding category. It's a $4.4 billion plan, $248 million increase on the current over the current 10-year plan. And it is constrained, so there's a little over $4.4 billion in revenue that's funding the plan. The road and bridge mode, $3.7 billion, or 83% of the total plan. Other modes, including rail, transit, and airports, $739 million, or 17% of the plan. Federal highway category is the largest funding source in the plan. 81% of the highway funded categories and 56% of the total 10-year plan funding. Its use is prohibited for operations and maintenance. I will say that each one of these funding categories has specific rules of where and how the money can be spent, and there are a few exceptions to those rules. Some of the major funding adjustments in this plan: increasing paving investment by $164 million. Much of that increase is due to inflation that we've included in our programs to try to better meet our targets and to maintain our buying power on the dollar. Previous plans did not include inflationary adjustments on the overall program level areas. State bridge investment increase to $169 million. Again, we're inflating some bridge programs, and we've allocated funds in some of the outer years, about $120 million in funds that isn't identified for that's not identified for specific bridges, but we would utilize those funds in order to accelerate the removal of red list bridges when they do come on the system. We're trying to remove red list bridges within a 7-year period, as opposed to pushing them out to 10 years and beyond in the plan. Convert Garvey bonding to federal aid. So the current 10-year plan includes Garvey bond issuance of $163 million across multiple projects. Net the debt service for that bonding of $105 million. The net increase to the plan is $58 million. Fully fund scope constrained projects adds $54 million. So there were a number of projects in the current 10-year plan that we had been controlling the overall scope on in order to maintain fiscal constraints. So we're able to add funding to a number of those projects in order to build more of the full scope that was intended. And again, that's a $54 million increase on the plan. Some of the non-highway sources of adjustments that are still pending. As we learn more, we'll bring those into this plan, including federal railroad, federal transit, and federal aviation. So state of the infrastructure, road and bridge condition projections. This is the projected outcomes from a road and bridge standpoint. So the upper left graphic shows miles of road resurfaced across the period of 2013 through 2032. The left-hand side of that graph shows actual miles of road on the statewide system that were paved. And the lighter blue color to the right-hand side shows the anticipated mileage based on the investment level that we have in the plan that we do expect to pave over the next 10 years through the 10 years of the plan. The target miles paved, that green line there shows a line at 500 miles. We have about 5,000 miles on the statewide network. We try to pave those, resurface those on a 10-year cycle. So if we can hit our 10-year 500 miles per year, we can maintain conditions across the statewide network in pretty good condition. So overall paving miles, as you can see, decreased through the draft 10-year plan based on the tail end of that light blue line out there. However, conditions for the next 4 years are expected to be 80% go to fair on the statewide network, and that's above average. Overall conditions in the later years are expected to decline by 30% to 50% go to fair. And most of those decreases are expected to be on Tier 3 and 4 roads, which are the rural and more lower volume roads overall. And the biggest impact on the ability to pave those roads is the rural road and bridge pledge from the TIFIA loan. So a few years ago, it was a loan taken out to a $200 million loan that was backed by SB 367, the 4 cents on the gas tax that I mentioned earlier. And as we started paying back that note, we were paying interest only. We're currently only paying interest only. And the principal portion of that debt service is being pledged to rural roads and bridges. And that's made a big difference overall on the statewide network. And that pledge goes away in 2025 because all of those funds are being used to pay debt service. So the $22 million overall is now going to, in 2026, will be used to pay debt service, and which is driving the reduction in overall miles paved on the statewide network. The bottom left graph shows the numbers of bridges that are on the state red list. The red list is poor condition bridges. Over time, the solid red line to the left shows actual number of red list bridges over the years since 2013. We're currently at 118, somewhere in the middle of that graph. And the line to the right, the light blue line, dash blue line, is what we expect to see from a number on the statewide network, driving down to 91 bridges by the end of this 10-year plan. Active transportation, we continue to enhance active transportation opportunities through investment in components through construction projects. So many of our existing highway or road projects include shoulder widening and sidewalks and the like, and those are one way that we invest in active transportation. We also invest through mandated federal programs, including transportation alternatives, the Rec Trail program, and CMAQ program, which is congestion mitigation and air quality. The current 2021 grant round for the TAP program, there were 13 projects that were identified, and those 13 projects are all in this draft 10-year plan. From a public transit standpoint, we continue to address transit challenges. Demand response, there are limited services for seniors and disabled. Service frequency, it's limited in urban areas, and route coverage is not enough coverage in rural areas. With that, we'll turn it over to Susan Slack to go through some slides on regional priorities. And I can advance this for you if you want,
Yeah, that'd
Susan.
be great. Yeah, thanks.
This one here.
Is this a good place to stand?
You can
or
come over here, or
You can face
back to
them.
most people here?
yeah, I could move if you like to.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Susan Slack with the Lakes Region Planning Commission. This is a map of the Lakes Region. We have 31 municipalities in the Lakes Region. 30 of those are active participants in the Lakes Region Planning Commission. We were allocated under the 10-year plan process $5.1 million to develop and forward some regional transportation priorities into the 10-year plan. And that, as you may know, is based on the number of federal aid eligible lane miles that we have in the Lakes Region, as well as our percentage of the population of the state. So we're just under 120,000 population. So we put forward two 10-year plan projects and one transportation alternative project. You can see in the Lakes Region that we cover kind of a good portion of central New Hampshire, from Effingham and Freedom in the east on the main boundary, Sandwich and Tamworth in the north, and then as you come around to the west, Plymouth and all the way down as far south as Barnstead in the south. And our name is appropriate for what you see in the Lakes Region, from Ossipee Lake on the east and Squam Lakes in the north, Newfound Lake on the west, Winnisquam on the sort of southwest there, and of course Lake Winnipesaukee right there in the middle. So we can go forward. We began the process of soliciting projects for the 10-year plan in the summer of 2020, reaching out to our member municipalities, helping them develop project ideas and applications. And then in October of 2020, a year ago, our Transportation Advisory Committee evaluated those projects, those 7 projects, and scored them and ranked them in priority order. And I'm pleased to see our Transportation Advisory Committee Chairman, Tink Taylor, right here in the front row, here today. And then over the winter, we submitted the 3 top-ranked projects to DOT for evaluation of feasibility and cost estimates, and got comments back. And based on those comments in February, our executive board voted to put forward the top 2 ranked projects. So that was our process. These are the criteria used to evaluate the 10-year plan projects. All of the regional planning commissions collaborated on developing these criteria. But we each were able to assign different weighting to the criteria that we used in our evaluations. And as you can see, we, in the Lakes Region, highlighted safety and network significance in prioritizing our projects. So the first of the 2 projects, the one that received the top priority under our evaluation, is a project put forward by the town of Meredith. And this is on Route 25, heading east from the main traffic lights in the main intersection in Meredith Village. Route 25 is a very important east-west corridor in the Lakes Region. Sees a high level of seasonal increase in traffic. This project was based on an earlier corridor study of Route 25 in Meredith that resulted in the sort of improvements at the traffic lights in the center of Meredith. So that project is finished, and this one being introduced is based on some of the other recommendations in that corridor study. So the town of Meredith coordinated from the town manager's office with the highway department, the police department, the community planning department, got together and evaluated intersections heading east out of the center of the village towards Center Harbor, and chose these 4 intersections listed here as projects they'd like to put forward for improvements in safety, traffic flow, that type of thing. So these 4 intersections, one is at Laker Lane, which is the campus of the Interlake School District. True Road is the second one as you're heading east, and that is an intersection where there's some fairly dense residential development. This picture shows the intersection at Quarry Road. Most people are familiar with Moulton's Farm right there at that intersection. And then the 4th one is Patrician Shores, which is near the Center Harbor town line and kind of a difficult right turn as you're heading east. And the idea here is to either create left turn lanes or shoulder bypass lanes so that traffic stopped and waiting to turn doesn't back up traffic trying to move through, and hopefully reduce some rear end collisions and that sort of thing. So that's the goal of this project. And then the second project is here in Plymouth. This was the second ranked project in our evaluation. That proposes intersection improvements at Smithbridge Road on Tenny Mountain Highway. And as you know, there's significant commercial development happening out there on Tenny Mountain Highway. The preferred option here is for a roundabout that would kind of align Smithbridge Road with the electric co-op's access driveway on the other side, and again improve safety of traffic turning out of Smithbridge Road, which kind of now sits in that center turn lane waiting to get into the travel lanes. So that's the goal of that project. And then third, 2 years ago, this Tilton roundabout project was included in the 10-year plan, and in order to sort of fully pay for the scope of that project, we pledged a little over $600,000 of this round's allocation to that project. So this would improve traffic flow and pedestrian safety in the sort of main intersection in downtown Tilton. And this lists the 7 projects applications that we received for 10-year plan projects. The top 2, again, were Meredith and Plymouth, and those other projects are all mostly valuable projects too, worthy projects. So there are always many more projects than there is funding. We also participated in the Transportation Alternatives application round. We received 5 project applications from our member municipalities. Again, we evaluated those and ranked them in priority order. We wish that all 5 could have been funded. They were all pretty good projects. But the #1 project was this Elm Street project in Laconia, and what this project proposes is to reconstruct the sidewalk on Elm Street so that it's ADA compliant, and on the other side of the road construct a pathway. And so this goes from about Elm Street School through some fairly dense residential areas down to Lakeport. And these are the other, in addition to Laconia, the other transportation alternative projects. We evaluated that were proposed, including a sidewalk project here in Plymouth and a couple of bike pathway projects that were pretty good projects. So, any questions? I guess we can handle later, but those are our proposals. And one point is Pete mentioned the additional funds being allocated to bolster some of the scope of projects that had been limited through inflation and so on. And one of those is the Wolfboro Route 28 Main Street projects. And so that brings that scope back up to what was originally intended. And we think that's a very important move. Thank you.
Thank you. Is our veteran in the front seat okay? Is he, okay, I just want to make sure. Just a question here, Peter. You mentioned the $200 debt service 2025 after TIF year is kind of, those resurfacing projects are distributed around the state. How long is it going to take to pay off the $200 million of that debt?
2034.
2034. So in essence, any additional resurfacing projects above and beyond what we do will end in 2025. Okay.
That's that funding, that particular pledge ends in 2025.
And
Okay.
then once the debt service is paid, the 4.2 cents gas tax increase sunsets as well.
Okay. So one of the things I wanted to point out is that the Governing Council, we only raise or reduce tolls, fees on the toll system. So when it comes to raising or decreasing the gas tax, that rests with the legislature. So we have kind of defined roles in regards to, what we can raise and what we can't. And so I just pointed that out. Go ahead.
A few more slides. This just to review some of the information in the 10-year plan project listings book. The top table is an all funding table, and it identifies investments by fiscal year, by type of work. So there are bridge investments, individual roadway investments. There's a debt service line there, active transportation, and the pie chart to the left shows you the percentage breakouts for each one of those categories. The table to the bottom, it's the same table that I showed you earlier in the presentation, rainbow chart. And again, the chart to the left shows the percentage breakouts for the investments by funding category. And that big blue piece of the pie is the federal highway category, which is a significant portion of funds for this plan. Individual projects are listed alphabetically. In this case, we're showing the first one in the book, which is Albany, and number 2 and 3 identifies the route it's on and the basic scope of work for the project. 4 and 5 identify the categories and the tier of road that it's on. 6, 7, 8, and 10 are funding related. These are the important ones, and in this case, the construction phase is funded from 2025 through 2027 in various amounts under various programs. And the overall funding included in this draft of the 10-year plan is $10.9 million. And number 10, it does show you that there's another $2 million and change that is included for this project, but prior to a 23 through 32 term. So the overall funding for the project is just over $13 million. Some areas that we're interested in getting feedback from those who attend these hearings. The first bullet is an exit sign renumbering project, statewide 40915. It's about $1 million worth of work, and it would renumber the exit signs on the interstates from sequentially numbering, which we have right now, to mile marker referencing. And in this case, I think exit 25 would be exit 80. And this is a project that we we are required to put into the 10-year plan based on our commitments from Federal Highway. And we're interested in if anybody has anything to say, whether they think it's a good project or not, or otherwise. I'm going to go through the rest of these, I don't believe. Online survey. We've similar to last update of the 10-year plan, we created an online survey. You can get to it from our website. There's a link also on the agenda that you picked up on your way in today. It'll take about 6 or 7 minutes to complete, and we're really looking to gather information on what's important to you regarding transportation system in New Hampshire. More general, broad themes. Are we spending money where you think we should spend it? Should we spend more in this area and less in another area? So again, I think we've got close to 500, if not more, respondents to date. And it's just one more way to inform the process. We'll summarize all the comments that we get, including the survey responses, and provide those to Gasset in November in order for consideration to look at adjustments in the draft 10-year plan. So again, encourage everybody to go out there and take the survey. Tell us what you think. With that, we moving on to the comment stage of the hearing, and I'll turn it back over to Councilor Kenny, and it's your turn.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for that presentation. He's done it 17 times. By the 21st time, he might get it right.
Doubtful.
So with that, we have blue cards, so please fill out a blue card if you'd like to speak, and we have cards in the back. So our State Senator, District 2, Senator Gaida from Warren, would you like to speak to us?
Thank you, Councilman Kenny. Commissioner, as you know, in Plymouth, the Highland Street issue has come up and gone down, and we've got it back up, and that's one of the reasons I'm here, is to advocate for those projects in my district, Plymouth, Tilton, Meredith, to maintain those projects in their current place on the list, and I'll be supporting that in the Senate. We're running into a funding issue as far as revenues, and I know the Commissioner and Councilor are both familiar with this, as because of COVID, and I think as well because of the increasing use of hybrid and electric cars, we're watching our gas tax revenues decline. Greater gas mileage, less gallons used, less revenues to the state because our current taxation is based on gallons. So Chairman of House Ways and Means, Norm Major, and myself as Chair of Senate Ways and Means have co-sponsored a bill to put a commission together to study how we can address fairly the issue of vehicles that are not paying the gas tax but are using the highways. I'm sure that will be a very robust discussion, but at the same time, we do have to maintain the funding to keep our roads running, and that's an issue. We're not the only state running into that. There are a number of states that we've looked at that have other methodologies they're looking at, so we'll be studying that stuff as well. It's a problem that we have to solve because we need to maintain our roads. Other than that, I would reiterate to the council and the members my support for the current order of things in the 10-year plan, and ask that you continue to support that, and I'll be happy to continue to support that when it gets to the Senate.
Thank you, Senator Gaida. Did you want to bring up that point like last year in the commuter revenues?
Sure. So we have explained this at some of the other hearings, but as you can imagine, during the COVID-19 pandemic, everybody was safer at home, and so we saw a remarkable reduction in the traffic volumes across the entire network. So the department does have traffic counters across the state on all of our major roadways, and we have been monitoring the traffic. So while things are definitely getting back to normal, it's a new normal. Weekend traffic numbers have been really strong with the number of visitors to New Hampshire, but from a commuting perspective, that's where we're still seeing a reduction in traffic. Employees have enjoyed the benefits of telework, and it looks like many employers are embracing that long term. So there's just some new trends that we're seeing in terms of the use of the system, and that's why we keep talking about revenue still being down, even at this point in the pandemic.
Thank you, Commissioner. So Tink, you filled out a card, right?
somewhere in there.
Yeah, and you get to speak. You're up next.
Oh, okay. I was gonna ask, what is the tax per gallon now? I know it's the state tax.
State tax is 22
22
for the state tax and 18 for the federal.
and 18 for the federal. Well, I will assume the podium here. I'm speaking for myself, not as chairman of the TAC for Lakes Region Planning Commission. I get a lot of input from constituents. It's a small town and people know what I'm doing. So I get stopped on the street a lot, I get pulled aside and say, oh, by the way, you know, when next time you have a meeting, when you do this or that. I'm not sure these items really belong in the 10-year plan. They may be under just sort of general day-to-day maintenance, but one of the comments that I get, and of course we're just finishing the summer season, is from cyclists and people who are pedestrians along our highways. We have some roads where it's especially precarious, with traffic traveling in both directions, and bicyclists, maybe even two abreast, riding along, and a car comes up behind them, and either they can't see over the brow of the hill or there's a curve, and a car comes up beside them, and it pulls over the other line, which I guess you can do under state law. And then, guess what? There's a vehicle coming from the other direction simultaneously. And we have a screeching of brakes, and we've had, I live on Route 113, but we've had two situations that are very close. I mean, it's one of these situations where the side mirror on a 10-wheeler actually almost took out a cyclist. Just, if he hadn't done this, the side mirror would have taken him out. Because we have many highways where outside the fog line, you're lucky if you got 8 inches. And a highway will have a travel lane of 3 or 4 feet, especially if they cut down on the travel lane. There might be 3 or 4 feet, and then suddenly 2 miles down the road, it's down to 8 inches. So the cyclist has no alternative but to steer into the travel lane, hopefully traffic going one way or the other. But then there's that competing traffic, oncoming traffic, suddenly you've got the makings of, I hope, not a fatality, but let's not wait for a fatality to occur. So that, I get that from our fellow, and that's mainly during the summertime. Good weather. We're not gonna have bicyclists out there in January. The other comment that I get from time to time is that it appears as though we've allowed the roadside ditches to fill. We had a situation on Route 175 where Commissioner, we got the road repaved, something it badly needed, and within a month, portions of that repavement had washed out because of a heavy rain, and we've got more heavy rain on the way. What little traveling I've done out west is they seem to have machines that go along and just sort of work their way along and pick up all the stuff that's filled the ditches. And of course in New Hampshire now we've got the vegetation is growing in the roadside ditches. That's how long it's been. But I see these machines going along at about the pace of a walk, and they clean out the ditches. Here we have to get a backhoe, and Division 3 has to borrow the backhoe from another division, and then hopefully the backhoe will come. They've got it for 2 days, and they need to bring in a line of dump trucks to take the fill, and it seems like there's somewhere out there there's got to be a machine that can just sort of clean out the ditches. We know where the bad situations are. And heavy rain, the water has nowhere to go, but guess what? Under the pavement. And then what follows? Frost. And therefore you get a road that has just been reshimmed. Within a year or so of a reshimment, we're back to the cracks and we're back to the heaving again. So it just seems like we need to take another look at roadside ditch maintenance, and I don't know whether that belongs in the 10-year plan or not. Maybe the commissioner can answer. That could be a maintenance issue. The only other thing is, I've had several of my bicyclist friends, and I don't ride a bike myself, wondering why we couldn't replace some of the unnecessary signs like deaf child, school bus turning around, the sort of signs that are outmoded. Why we couldn't replace a few of those with share the road. Now, that may not take care of these bicycle problems, but at least alerts the motorist to the fact that, oh, that's right, I think there are other folks using this road besides motor vehicles, so I don't know if you have share the road signs down there or not, but a few of them posted strategically would be much appreciated, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taylor. Next would be Bill Dowie of Bristol. Did I get that right? Okay. Good to see you again.
Yes, thank you. Hello, Peter.
Hello.
So, you people are familiar with my face, having been to these meetings for the last 6 years. But I'm here, I forgot my glasses, so, we have been working, as you know, and we've had these two projects listed, and finally, in 2023, they come to fruition. Now, I've contacted Nick Sanders, the new replacement for Larry Canister. And he has told me that you do not have a project engineer to start on these projects. And really, 2021, we should be starting on the project for the 2023 deployment of the Lake Street redo and the Summer Street redos. Those projects, if you want the numbers, they are 40636 for Summer Street, and Lake Street is 41579. And they are due for 2023 deployment, and we really should be starting onto the project designs. But Nick Saunders told me that you do not have a project engineer assigned to them at this time. And so I'm urging you to, we are ready in Bristol to have your people come and visit with us so they can become acquainted with what needs to be done, especially from the point of view of cyclists and pedestrians on both streets. We would like to have a continuum on our existing bike path, which was primarily funded by Bristol. We would like to extend that now down Lake Street, across Kelly Park, onto Summer Street, so that our residents and primarily children can safely travel from the baseball field on Wells Park to the lake unimpeded on a bicycle and pedestrian path. So I'm just here to urge that since it is funded and we have been patiently waiting for the last 6 years and getting on the list and advocating for it, we'd like to see it come to fruition.
I'd just like to clarify one thing. Both those projects are programmed for construction in 2026. The money is programmed for design at an earlier point. In fact, work has already started on both of those projects. So we're in a period of transition. We've had some project managers retire and projects are being reassigned. But both those projects, we have started the work effort, but they won't go to construction till 2026. There's plenty of time to get the design ready from our perspective.
That would be true, but I think that's clarifying information to me. I thought it was 2023.
Since the 104 project in particular was introduced to the 10-year plan, it's always had a construction date of 2026. I think it was last 10-year plan round we moved the funding up for design, but the construction was always in the 26.
The engineering is in 2023. That's when the engineering is funded in 2023.
Okay. Well, we're impatient.
Yes.
And we have begun working. There was work that's been done to date. I've been involved in a number of meetings with the town regarding those two projects.
And another point is just a point of information to Bob. I spoke at a men's meeting in Bristol a little while ago about the state of the gas tax in New Hampshire, which has not been raised since 1992, and the fact that everybody's driving a car which is much better economy than they were in 1992 when the gas and federal taxes were set. And so I've proposed to these gentlemen that they really should consider the fact that we really might have to pay a little more for our gas tax. Well, they just about lynched me and threw me out of the meeting. So you are going to have a contentious time when you bring this commission together to study what needs to be done as far as replacing that revenue that's been lost. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, thank you. Representative Susan Smith of Hebron.
Yep. Should I speak from here or go to the mic?
Wherever you think you can get
I
the
think I
audience's
can project.
attention, okay.
I just wanted to say I'm very pleased to see the Smith Bridge Road intersection has made it to the 10-year plan. We met with DOT and the former executive counselor 4 years ago, and all stood out there on the street and looked at how dangerous it is. And it's like I feel like I'm taking my life in my hands as I pull into the suicide lane to wait for my chance to make the turn onto Smith Bridge Road. So I'm really glad that a roundabout is what's being proposed, because I know the other option would be a traffic light. And so I'm hoping that all the support is for the roundabout. And when it comes time to vote, if I get to vote for it, I'll vote for it.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker would be Catherine Lowe, the town manager of Plymouth.
That would be me.
Thank you for allowing us to be here at your facility.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for allowing us to speak. So, Town of Plymouth has 2 projects that are listed in the New Hampshire DOT's 10-year plan. The first one being Highland Street, as was mentioned by Senator Gaida. The town is very appreciative that this project has been approved, and we have been moving forward and begun working on the project with DOT. However, in March of 2021, town staff spoke with DOT staff about the original schedule, which we understood was to begin in 2022. And since that time, we have invested staff resources to work with DOT on the project agreement, because DOT asked us to municipally manage the project. We noted in the 2023-2032 plan that preliminary engineering scheduled to begin in 2022 was moved to 2023. So we're just seeking clarification as to why it might have been moved out a year, or if indeed it is still going to be 2022, as in the original draft. So the second project, if I should continue, is the intersection of Smith Bridge Road and Tenny Mountain Highway. We're pleased to see this project listed in the 2023-2032 10-year plan, as there have been a number of accidents at this intersection. It is indeed very dangerous. We support a roundabout to improve safety, traffic flow, and traffic calming at this location to prevent future accidents and possible death. And I say prevention is the key. This is a priority project for the Lakes Region Planning Commission as well as for the town of Plymouth. We were willing to manage it locally, but because of the type of road it is on, we are okay with New Hampshire DOT's preference of managing the project. We'd like to just ensure that this project remains as part of the 2023-2032 10-year plan, with the project beginning in 2027 or sooner, as Tenny Mountain Highway is an economic driver for our community. So that's all I have to say.
Do you need an answer to your first question?
If you have it.
Sure. There's previous funding showing up in this draft 10-year plan of $95,000. So that would be prior to 2023. Presumably, it's in 2022. So there is money available, and certainly the first thing that we need to do is make sure that we get an agreement with the town, so that everybody is clear about who's doing what and when that's going to happen, and what it is we're seeking to complete from a work standpoint, from an engineering standpoint.
For everyone's benefit, the DOT is currently working on the 21 to 30 10-year plan. So there's a number of projects with dollars programmed in state fiscal year 21 and 22 that will continue as planned. We're now looking at 23 to 32, which is why you have to read that line that says previous funding, because that shows any spending that may have occurred on the project in the prior 10-year plan period.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you for speaking. Bill Makuson from Tuftonboro. How you doing?
Great, yourself? I'm happy to speak from here if everybody can hear me.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Can everyone hear him?
All right,
Okay.
so I have a specific issue that I would like to raise, and I know we've raised it before. It has to do with state bridge aid. In the town of Tuftonboro, we have one bridge that we believe is particularly vulnerable. It's not in failure, it's not red listed. It is a single point of access to about 10% of the homes in the town. So if it goes out, the only way you're getting there, other than establishing a new road around a body of water, is over the lake. For a number of years, we've been trying to get ourselves into the queue for the Bridge Aid program, and it seems like it's coming closer and then it goes further away. Again, the Tuftonboro Neck Bridge is fine today, but when it needs to be replaced, we want to be proactive and do it in a manner that impacts the residents of the area and the town in the least impactful way that we can. So I know as we've gone through the process and trying to do this, we've been encouraged maybe 4 or 5 years ago that it looks like we were getting pretty close to being in the window for being kind of at the tail end of the 10 years out, and more recently it's been pushed further out. So perhaps somebody could help us understand a better way short of failure of the bridge to get in line for the state bridge aid funds for replacement of this municipal bridge.
So there will be a new solicitation. It'll be following this round of the 10-year plan, probably timed with the next update of the 10-year plan. One of the areas that has seen funding reduced has been the state aid bridge program, given the reduction in gas tax that's being paid. So that's been coming off the back end of the program, and right now we are full through basically 2028 and into 2029 with the current bridges that we have in the program. And so any new bridges would come through a new solicitation and would be entered into the program following 2028 into 2029 and beyond. So we still have some time. There will be opportunities to put an application in for the funds that do remain for the program. And I guess I just ask you, you're being very proactive. You continue to be proactive, and we'll throw a little bit of patience in there, and we will get around to a new solicitation.
So in the past, when we've put the applications in through this process, and it didn't raise to the level of actually getting on the schedule, is there any sort of a holding queue, or does it just start over the next time?
So it's a pretty popular program with limited amount of funding, and we anticipate the next solicitation to actually have criteria to rate those and prioritize those that come into that are seeking funding. And so as that criteria gets developed and finalized, it'll be something that we'll discuss with Gasset, and hopefully next round of the 10-year plan, we will have a series of bridges that will make recommendations for overall to include into the next draft 10-year plan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our next speaker would be Cheryl Babler from Campton.
Yes,
Hi.
thank you. Hi, Cheryl Babler, Campton, and I'm not gonna ask you to give me any more money right now.
Oh.
I'm not gonna ask you to move up a project for me, I'm not gonna ask you to do anything like that. All I'm gonna ask you to do is hear a story, okay? I worked at, an outfit, human services outfit on Tenny Mountain Highway. And I was doing reception many days, and all kinds of interesting people walked through the door. Picture a snowstorm, it's blowing, the drifts are taller than this man's head. And I have a little blonde girl coming in the office saying, they told me at the shelter I had to go out and find a job today, so I can take care of my baby. And forgive me, it's very emotional. And we didn't have a job for her, but I made sure she got, where she needed to go next. Active transportation is a great word. The meaning for some people is, I want to tell you, is, because I've been carrying this around for a couple of years, is that a woman from shelter can walk safely on Tenny Mountain Highway. And just, there's not much transportation around here. Tenny Mountain Highway would be a great place to start with because there are so many. But to think of those people that don't have it, and forgive me for being so emotional, this is kind of a surprise to me. But I hope that made sense. If you have any questions, I will. Thanks for listening.
Well, thank you for those words. Our next speaker would be Megan Sameo. Did I get it right? She's still here? I think she might have left. Okay. Our next speaker would be Mark Ishkarnen.
I've heard it pronounced so many ways. Don't worry.
I've tried to pronounce the way you wrote it
That's
down.
why my writing. First of all, I want to thank you for making your way around New Hampshire and soliciting public comment. It sounds like it's a very extensive process, and I know it's been on your side. I know it's not easy to do, but thank you for making the time. My name's Mark Ishkarnen. I'm a resident of Moultonborough. I'm a member of the Bike Walk Alliance of New Hampshire. I'm an active cyclist. I'm also an active driver, so I put many thousands of miles a year on my bike and even more on my car. So I totally support improving and maintaining the infrastructure for cars and roadways, but I'm here mostly to talk about active transportation alternatives. In my community, Moultonborough, we are blessed with the Moultonborough Neck Bike Path. I think it was started 20 or odd years ago. It has received funding in the past. There are 3 phases. The first phase is closest to Route 25, and the second phase was closer to Long Island, but there's a middle phase that hasn't been built yet. And I saw in Susan's presentation we're number 4 on the list in the region, which I understand there are a lot of good projects. But that middle section of the road thwarts people who want to go the full 6 or 7 miles on the Moultonborough Neck Road without literally endangering life and limb on that middle section where there is no paved shoulder at all. And it's near and dear to me because I was hit by a car on that road in 2008. And I still travel it by bike. I'm very careful. I was careful then, I'm careful now. But it's frustrating to have a bikeway that 2 parts are completed and the middle part is not. And I'm both lobbying the Lakes Region Planning Commission, but also the state to allocate more money for these kind of projects. I'm also lobbying to get another section of Route 25 beyond where Susan was talking about, to get expanded from roughly the Neck Road in Moultonborough into the village, which is about 2.5 miles or thereabouts. It has no shoulder for almost the whole stretch. It's a dangerously narrow road with very high traffic volume, and it literally separates our town. I think the more populous section of our town is west of that roadway to get to the village without having to, if you're on a bike or walking, it's simply impossible to bike or walk on that section. I worked with the Lakes Region Planning Commission on it. I finally just recently got the town to accept the priority, that it should be a priority listing, and I think we're in the beginning of that 10-year process to get that section of roadway widened so that there's a manageable paved shoulder, which will really help unite our town. I really hope that the DOT can allocate, or the legislature can allocate more funds to the TAP program, because I think, I'm a baby boomer, there are a lot of us who like to stay active. With the advent of e-bikes, I see more and more people who don't necessarily want to pedal their way around, but they want a pedal assist. And I just think it's, both from a tourism standpoint, a healthy population standpoint, we need to do as much or more than we're doing now to improve the infrastructure, to allow people to get out of their cars and get onto bikes of one type or another, or even walk safely along our roadways. So I really think it would be a good investment in our future, and I really encourage you to allocate, or work with the legislature to allocate more funds. Finally, I'm just discovering the rail trails of New Hampshire. I was on the part of the Northern Rail Trail with my wife the other day for the first time. It's a wonderful resource, and while we were there kind of at the end of the season, we ran into many cyclists of all types who just loved being out and discovering that resource. And I think the more we publicize that resource and the more money we put into it, I think it'll be a real attraction for tourists who don't want to necessarily be on their bikes on a roadway, but want to be off the roadway, and the rail trails are a perfect opportunity for that. So I really encourage a continued funding and expansion of the rail trail network. I totally endorse the idea of increasing the gas tax. I remember writing to my legislator 3 or 4 years ago saying, now's the time to increase the gas tax while prices are historically low. Prices are not as low as they were 3 or 4 years ago. But I just think we need to bite the bullet and raise funds to really adequately maintain our resources. And finally, I'd love to see a system set up where we can properly get user fees from electric vehicles. I know that's not your problem, it's the legislature's problem, but we need to address it sooner than later, because electric vehicles are becoming more and more prevalent, and they need to pay their fair share, just like gasoline-powered vehicles. So, more than anything, support bicycle infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your testimony. Next speaker is Sue Wood of Plymouth.
Thank you.
Hi.
I just want to say that I do support the Tenny Mountain Highway program. That's a great, I'm glad something's finally coming about that. The pedestrian and bicycle traffic on that road is increasing because now people are living out there, and the other area is beyond that on Route 25, east and west heading towards Rumney. There's a stretch of road out there where there's some businesses with heavy trucks. There's Puller Caves, which is a great tourist attraction. And there's just nowhere for anyone to go, and the speed limit is 55 miles an hour. We're seeing a lot more foot traffic and bicycle traffic on that now. So that's another section of road that is just getting really dangerous. There have been some fatalities out there. And I know about 4 years ago, Senator Guida was helping us do some stuff, and he did write a lot of letters, and he got a lot of comments, and then I started making phone calls, and the most disturbing comment I got was that there weren't enough deaths for them to look at it. And that kind of set me back a little bit. And so Senator Guida was very supportive, and he still, I think, is still pushing on that. We have requested some signs for trucks, and they won't do anything with, extending that to saying truck traffic or anything like that. And it's all passing lane right where those trucks turn and enter. And it's really dangerous. And so I just hope there are no more fatalities. And I just hope that you would consider that as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sue. And you're still working on that, Senator Guida, right? Okay. Next would be, is it Don Eaton? Dave Eaton.
Dean. D-E-A-N.
Okay, Dean. Well, you're up.
I have a problem with roundabouts. We're in the trucking business. We do wide loads all the time, all over the state and all over in New Vermont and everything. The roundabouts are too small to get around with wide load. Too small to get around with blowing tires in some of these. There's one in Hollis, we tried to get through there with a big fellow buncher and couldn't get through it. Had to back up, pull traffic, go straight through it. And, but this time, our routes are designated by the DOT. We were off the routes, you know, and we didn't get bagged for it or anything else. But isn't it true that this out here on Smith Bridge Road, that's all wired for lights? Last I knew, when that was all put in there, that all the lights, all they gotta do is put up this, I mean, I know it's expensive, but it would be a lot cheaper to put up more lights than would be built around it. The one in Plymouth, you can't get around it with a low bed with a wide load. I mean, we're over 12 feet, we have to run escorts. We load tires, getting around it, everything else. The one in Bosquen is a terrible one. I was escorting one of my trucks through there. We had to back up 3 times to make the corner around it. You know, the bus driver there blowing a horn, and I'll blow his horn, but anyway. The other thing is, nothing against bicycles, but when they start paying to help with some of the taxes that we pay on these big trucks, I think that it's on the other side too. I don't, and share the road, right, but you can't share the road when you're riding, you know, we're told where to go, but we don't see, and they're good to us. I'm not in love with roundabouts.
Mr. Eaton, are you part of the New Hampshire Transport Association?
Yes.
Okay, have you elevated your issue to their level as well?
I think we have.
Okay. And Commissioner, is there a certain specifications when designing roundabouts that have to meet 18-wheeler specifications?
So when we design roundabouts, yes, you have to be able to accommodate certain standard truck sizes. What we run into is when you're transporting oversized loads, then we have to plan the route as was described, and we do have challenges navigating roundabouts with oversized loads. And usually it requires more details and closing the different approaches to the roundabout to make sure that the truck that's being escorted can come through. Sometimes we have to go so far as to do the roundabout in reverse because of the turning movement, so it depends on the particular location.
Could I say one more thing?
Yes.
You know, the way the curb bidding is set up sometimes, and we've actually blown tires, they don't get it off because you can't get through it. The one in the new one in Lancaster is it's an engineering disaster. I think the guy that engineered that was driving a Volkswagen, he wouldn't ever drove a truck.
Yeah, the truck aprons are supposed to be traversable, but depending on the material choice, it can be challenging for certain trucks. So those are the lessons learned that we are applying.
Am I wrong in saying that those, Smith Bridge Road, that's all wired for lights?
Not sure.
I don't know
not
for
sure.
That's what the last meeting we had.
It's possible. I wouldn't want to commit one.
About 6 years ago, and that was Alan Hanscom was here, and he said that was all wired up and ready to go. Just standing up. I know it's expensive, but it's a heck of a lot cheaper than around.
Can we get an answer for it?
And a lot easier. Ask your snowplow guys how they like it coming down.
Yep, they would confirm that, I would think.
Okay, well, that was a good debate. Thank you, Mr. Eaton. And next would be Mr. Noyes.
Right here. I have a comment to make. Smith Bridge Road. That is a dangerous piece. If you're running contractors, my wife and I coming out, Smith Bridge Road, onto Kenny Mountain, to head east. You've got 2 farm tractors to try to head east in traffic. You want 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. It may take you 30 seconds to get across with farm tractors. And it is very difficult and dangerous. I would feel myself, lights would be more beneficial. If you got a roundabout, yes. You still see cars, but I haven't got a speed wagon. I'm still creeping around a roundabout. You're only moving a few miles an hour, not 15 miles an hour to a roundabout. That's all I have to say on that. One other question. I'm going to go back for a little history. Approximately in the 80s, when Reagan was president, he imposed a 5 cent a gallon federal motor fuel tax. That was going to be earmarked only for bridge repair, and that would not be used for 2 years. I don't know if that gas or that fuel tax was for construction of new bridges, but as I recall, it was bridge repair. And he said that fund would never run out of money because he wouldn't allow it. I've tried finding out where has this money gone. I've written DOT in Washington and get no answers. Well, a month and a half later, I kept bugging them down there with letters. Finally, they told me, we don't want to hear any more from you. I mean, where has this money gone? The only thing I have found, this money is no longer traceable because it's been rolled into general fund. This 5 cent a gallon motor fuel tax. So bad bookkeeping somewhere in the government. So that's all I got.
No, thank you very much for this. Well, we have the president of ASHTO here that might be able to give you an answer.
So I don't know the specifics on what was proposed during President Reagan, but typically the authorization for transportation is a 5-year period. So there's been numerous cycles of authorization. So all gas tax revenue goes into a federal trust fund that funds roadway improvements. And that's why they can't tell you where that 5 cents has gone, because all of that revenue now, through changes in statute, changes in law, rolls into the Highway Trust Fund. And then it's awarded to the states through an apportionment process. And that's what Pete was referencing when he talks about the federal funding that comes to New Hampshire. There's definitely certain programs, and we have performance targets for bridge infrastructure. So we are using a large portion of that revenue for bridges specifically. But that's what's happened over time, is different Congress, different presidents have chosen to take the money that's collected and use it in a different way.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Noyes. Our next speaker is Tony Albert of Groton.
Thank you. I'm the selectman of town of Groton.
Thank you.
We had a meeting the other night with Senator Geider, and he encouraged us to come to, he's letting us know about the 2023 resurfacing program on North Groton Road. Encouraged to keep that on. But the other thing on North Groton Road here, Orchard Hill Road, we got a twin culvert there that's in very bad shape. It's rotten, and we've written a letter to the DOT about that. Is if that goes out, that cuts our town in half, you know, for emergency services and everything. We didn't know where that was going to be rebuilt before the road servicing was done. It needs to be upgraded. It's too small. It's, you know, it gets filled up then and it's rotten. One of the culverts is pretty rotten, so I'm sure the DOT is well aware of it. I know they are. And just wanted to emphasize that, you know, to keep our road on schedule. We appreciate that. And there's another item that I don't know how it falls into the 10-year plan, but in 2019 we had a flood. The rivers we need funding to clean rivers. The river that Orange Brook took out, we had just completed our bridge over on Orange Brook, and the storm came down and a big hemlock about a tenth of a mile from the bridge across the river, and it diverted 95% of the river down through the field, and it made Sculpture Rock. It took out about 500 feet of the road completely, and that's where the river was running. It missed a bridge, a new bridge completely. And we have sunk a lot of money into that road. Well, we got the federal funding, I think it was $600,000, and FEMA funds plus town proportions. And we just completed $600,000 to $700,000 replacing 3 culverts with box culverts, 10 on the upside of the lot, through a federal grant program, a 50 grant. So taxpayers are brought to put a lot of money to this road to keep it. And I'm also working with the head of Newfoundland Lake Beach Captain. I'm sorry, I can't remember. Becky Hansen. I'm working with her. There's a place where this all started. It's on Fish and Game Land up on Orange Brook Road. It's about a mile up. There's a clay bank up there. The river diverted to it. It's eroding that clay bank. And every rainstorm that comes, every heavy rain, the clay comes from all the way there and makes it to Newfoundland Lake. And the river runs gray all the time. And I've been trying to get somebody up there just to divert the river diverted probably 50 to 75 feet into that bank. It needs to be put back to where it was, but we met with DES, we met with Fish and Game and the Army Corps of Engineers. They all agreed it needed to be done. You know, the Army Corps of Engineers were willing to give us a permit, but the town of Groton can't afford to do that. You know, there's no funds. Everybody's broke, you know, and I understand that, but something's got to be done with it up there. And like I said, with Becky, I told her that there's 2 natural rivers that come down that big clay bank. It's probably 50 to 60 feet high. And if that river undermines them and that comes down, that whole mountain's coming down. I mean, it's just a big clay spruce ridge. It's a big clay bank up here. If they don't do something soon, something's going to happen. And this was just a big, you know, it's like 6-7 inch rain event that happened there locally. They took out that road. And I said, we got the road completely paved. We've sunk it, you know. It's been $1.5 million put in that road in the last couple of years. And we'd like to keep it, but the brook, we ended up having to put excavators in the brook and clean the brook in about 3 places because the brook was completely full. But it's just been temporarily cleaned. It needs to be cleaned. And it's just going to erode our infrastructure up there too. So I don't know how, but I know state roads. I was a DOT foreman for 33 years, so I've dealt with North Groton Road a lot. These twin culverts, I helped put them in. So you know, I'm familiar with roadworks, and you know, debris is what does us in a lot. Is, you know, and the rivers are just going, they're filling up. So, but like I said,
No, thank you for bringing those concerns. I'm sure we.
you know, for the town of Groton, as town people, actually, we sunk a lot of money to these roads, and we other roads like North Groton. If that twin culverts go out, it cuts us in half. So, thank you.
Thank you. We're still dealing with Sullivan County, a lot of the flooding issues down there, and that's going to be a tough one to handle as well. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
I'd like to apologize for falling asleep.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure you were still alive.
I'm bipolar. I've been working 12 hours a day. I go to sleep at 3 hours, and I think what I'm going to do the next 12.
No, that's fine. Anybody else would like to speak? If not, we'll go ahead. We have Senator Geider.
Based on what happened in Ackworth and Sullivan, Cheshire counties with this last round of flooding, Senator Prentice and I are bringing in a bill. The governor has the authority to declare a civil emergency. And we're going to include in that the ability to tap directly into the state treasury with funds not otherwise appropriated, because it's not a matter of whether the roads get fixed, it's when. Okay, when these emergencies happen and the town is cut in half, for example, or Ackworth, they got 3 major roads that nobody can get to, with major businesses and so forth. So we're trying to promote the issue that says tap the money now. Yes, your select boards or your board of aldermen and mayor or whatever are going to have to come up with a plan, but the state treasurer is willing to work with that. Low interest, no interest loans, maybe some grants. The problem we have a dedicated fund that's been in existence for years for disaster relief. It has this many dollars in it. So we're working to fund that and put in place procedures that towns can use when these disasters hit. We're woefully inadequate in that regard. So I just want to make you aware of that. If your town gets hit with some kind of a natural disaster with flooding, okay, pick up the phone, call your governor, call the counselors, and call the HSM, Homeland Security Emergency Management, Jen Harper. They know this program. I wrote the bill that put it in here in 2017, but my town of Warren got clobbered, and we're still waiting on funds for FEMA. Problem is that the declaration by FEMA takes many times months to get done, and in those months, your towns are slowly starving to death. Why you can't get your roads fixed and your bridges repaired. So that's what we're trying to fix down there. Those programs exist, we're gonna improve on them, just be aware that that's the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Guy. I appreciate that update. With that, we'll go ahead and close the hearing. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.